Accessing library computer data.
And to make sure that history never forgets the name Enterprise.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Pensky Podcast. You haven't tuned in before, this is a podcast where we are running through all 178 episodes of Star Trek The Next Generation, giving our thoughts and feelings about each and every one. Right now we're up to episode 3, season 5. It's called Ensign Ro. It was directed by Les Landau. Teleplay goes to Michael Piller. Story goes to Michael Piller and Rick Berman. Aired back on October 21, 1991. The crew is unsettled by the arrival of Ensign Ro, a disgraced Starfleet officer of Bajoran origin. This is introducing a pretty important character who's going to continue through the series for, I think, about 7 episodes as a recurring guest star. Modi Operandus is here to talk about this one with us. So right after this break, me and Modi are going to go deep on Ensign Ro.
Members of this crew who will not want to serve with Ensign Laren, sir.
They'll have to learn to live with it.
I intend to demand the highest level of performance from her.
I would expect nothing less. Won't be for long, Will. Come. Yes, Ensign Laren, please sit down.
Ensign Ro, sir.
I beg your pardon.
The Bajoran custom has the family name first, the individual's name second. I am properly addressed as Ensign Ro.
I'm sorry, I didn't know.
No, there's no reason you should. It's an old custom. Most Bajor these days accept the distortion of their names in order to assimilate. I do not.
We're introduced to Ensign Ro. Are you excited for that?
I don't know. I wasn't too big a fan of her the first time I watched these, but I don't know. I liked her in this episode for sure. So
she's definitely unique, right? She's like the most combative character that we've ever really seen.
She doesn't quite belong in this universe, kind of thing. Yeah, it's interesting.
She vaguely has a, not really. She's like sort of, she's very different from Pulaski, who's been like the previous most combative person that we've seen, and the writers even watered down Pulaski, or if not watered down, they toned her down a little bit. Ro's a little bit different. Ro's a little bit more aggressive than that. A little bit more.
Definitely.
I don't think we've ever seen anyone talk to a superior officer the way that she does in this one, with very little repercussions coming from it, which is an interesting choice.
There's more "Can I be candid" in this episode than there is in the entire series, probably.
Yes, yeah, that's definitely true. There's a lot of candid conversations. There's a lot of angry Riker conversations in this one too, which isn't really bad. Ensign Ro. So Ro Laren is going to be in 8 episodes total of TNG. I think 6 of them are in season 5. She has 1 in season 6 and then 1 in season 7. So
she inexplicably disappears for a long time.
She does.
Like, they don't really say like she's going away now. Like, just kind of.
I didn't realize.
Doesn't even bother writing her out.
I didn't realize she was gone, or that her episodes were so season 5 heavy. I thought they spaced her out a little bit more, like kind of like Guinan is spaced out, where you don't see her. You know, you see her maybe 2 or 3 times a season.
Yeah.
They did not do that. She must have had a contract thing or something, because she's front loaded here in this Ensign Ro introduction episode. This is episode 3 of the 5th season. I think I'll start this by just saying, I don't know if Ensign Ro, the episode, is better or worse because of its legacy that it created. Okay. Like, this is a very important episode in terms of the canon of Star Trek, is especially important for Deep Space Nine.
Right,
This is the first mention of the Bajorans, who I had to review. I was shocked they weren't actually mentioned in The Wounded. This is the first time they've ever been brought up, and they call them the Bajora, which is something that would not continue. So what do you think of the introduction here of the Bajorans and Ensign Ro in particular?
I think it's a very interesting thing. I like. I don't know. I kind of like the stuff on Deep Space Nine, and I liked it here. It's a good plot they haven't like gone into before, of a kind of a settlement that's been, thrown out of their homeland kind of thing. I guess there's a Israeli-Palestinian kind of thing going on, I guess, maybe.
Yep.
Is this the parallel, maybe? But I kind of like that they're going there with this.
Yeah.
And a lot of good stories to be told.
Palestinians, I think they're, they're sometimes endearingly referred to as the space Jews of Star Trek. But yeah, it's basically any sort of persecuted minority who's been forced to move on into some other situation. And I think this is a good episode. I watched it twice, and I liked it a lot more the second time.
There's a lot of good stuff here, for sure.
Yeah, it's sort of quietly solid. I think that I'll get the worst part of it right out of the way. I think this might be the worst use of Guinan that the show has ever done.
Yeah,
what do you think?
True. No, yeah, I agree with that. Her friend befriending Ro, just because kind of thing. It's I don't know. I mean, anything that involves Guinan is usually pretty good, and this isn't terrible, but I don't know.
Yeah, I think
she's just a little too coy or something. I don't know.
She's a little pushy. She's pushy in a sense that you wouldn't really understand why she's being so pushy. Whether like
she's always kind of pushy though. She
does, but she doesn't like in this one she follows it up. Like she doesn't just have the one bar conversation and leave it at that. She like goes to Ro's quarters, and like confronts her about it. That's a little bit odd for Guinan's character.
But they're friends now. Yeah, so that you can do that kind of thing because they're good friends now.
It's another. I have a personal pet peeve against people who call everybody a friend. Basically, like if they meet somebody, they're like, "This is my friend," and it's like you use that term too loosely. I'm not appreciative of that.
Then again, she's doing a solid for Ro because you can see this person's in pain and like obviously calling her on her bullshit kind of by making her like calling her out saying you're sitting in a bar. If you wanted to be alone, you would go to your room. Like I like that she's calling her out on it. At the same time, she's I don't know. I kind of liked it. Anything that has Guinan in it is usually pretty good. So
yes, I agree. I felt that generally Guinan's pretty good. I feel like this one pushed it a little bit too much. I don't know if they were doing it to save time, but I would have preferred her maybe learning, being more sort of normalized by the crew interactions that she doesn't really have, except for Guinan. Ro's still pretty feisty by the end of it. It's really Guinan sort of talking to her that turns the whole thing around. But it did feel that there wasn't a lot of room for interaction between her and the other crew members, which is actually where the real problem with their interactions comes from. Like Ro is very intensely antagonistic towards the rest of the crew, resulting in Riker yelling at her and everything like that.
Yeah.
The Bajoran stuff is good. I thought it was... I guess what I'm saying when I have a tough time separating the legacy is that I don't know if what happens in this episode is super fantastic in terms of a standalone episode, but they kind of get the Bajorans correct from the start, which is nice. They've gotten the Cardassians correct and they've gotten the Bajorans right.
Yeah, I kind of like that there's this other another faction that doesn't have the same kind of rules that the Federation has. It has this terrorist force that's actually kind of their ally a little bit.
Yep.
It's an interesting place to put the Federation, I think.
Yeah, it's tough to this is an episode where the Federation's policy is really being questioned, and I think pretty effectively. It makes it all the more absurd when they show up, and they see the Bajoran camps. And Picard's like, how about we replicate everybody a blanket?
Yeah. Couldn't you just do that all the time? Why are you going out of your way to why doesn't everybody just have a replicator that's provided by you?
Right. Just give them everything. It's a weird, I think the episode brings it up. It's not like it's a plot hole. I think the Federation takes generally we don't get involved in things like this if you're not a member of the Federation, sort of. Like if Bajor is in Cardassian space, I'm not even sure how the layout of that works. I don't know if Bajor is in Cardassian space or not. I thought it would not be to be a next, or maybe you would be technically for a time, and then they retreat.
Yeah, I'm not
to
sure.
whatever.
Like you said in a previous episode, there's no real maps for this kind of stuff in the entirety of Star Trek.
Right. So you don't know how far they are.
It's
or
all
whatever.
implied kind of thing. I take it that Bajor is like the first planet on the edge of Cardassian space, and that they're kind of always the first ones under attack from them, kind of thing. Maybe.
Right. Yeah. Always in danger. I think I agree with that. It's they I guess what another interesting little tidbit I read here was that originally the Romulans were supposed to be the oppressors, like they were supposed to be the colonial force basically that's strip mining Bajor, And
Okay.
Rick Berman decided they'd seen too much of the Romulans, and he liked the Cardassians, so he went with them. I think it's a much better choice. It makes way more sense
for sure.
in context.
I like the Cardassians as a species too. They're very I don't know, they provide something that the Romulans don't. I don't know what it is, but there's some similarities there, but there's something else that I don't know. There's this subtle, like, even more so than the Romulans, they have this subtle, like, underhandedness about them. That they're smiling to your face, but you can tell it, like, I guess the difference is the Romulans aren't smiling to your face kind of thing. Whereas the Cardassians feel exactly the same way as the Romulans, but they're doing it with a smile on your face kind of thing. I don't know. I like that they can do things like that with these guys.
I think I would say that the Romulans have a sense of ethics that the Cardassians don't really. Like the Cardassians are just kind of like brutality.
Right.
I think Richard from Chakrabout described them. They're like civilized brutality, sort of like they're very, they're very pleasant to sort of talk to, but you know everything there is like simmering beneath the surface. But they're always unfailingly polite when they talk to the Federation. But they also the only species that seems to be torturing and killing people.
Right.
In this.
There's like a litmus test actually. Like there's the Klingons one side. And there's the Cardassians on the other side, and the Romulans fall someplace in the middle. And like it's like these guys are super duper evil, but they're super super nice. These guys are like just angry and not really evil. But then there's these middle guys that are kind of evil, but also kind of angry. It's there's a spectrum, the full spectrum.
There's
represented here.
A spectrum of like their predilection towards violence and like how they interact with you. I agree. I think that it's I'm glad they brought the Cardassians back. I think they're a good species that they've actually done pretty good work with in the two times here. I did wonder, do you think that the Bajor storyline really sticks in TNG's universe of Star Trek?
Well, it becomes Deep Space Nine's thing, and it does set it up. Like, I think that I'm glad that it ended up being the Cardassians here, because that really did make a lot of good plots for Deep Space Nine then later.
Yeah.
I can't believe that they almost didn't happen. You know what I think when I think about it? It's like, oh wow, if this was Romulans, we wouldn't have this whole thing going on. I don't know this episode is got a lot to do. It's got to introduce Ensign Ro. It's got to introduce the Bajoran feud with the Cardassians.
Yep.
In the space of 42 minutes. Yes. I feel like this is an episode that would benefit from like a feature-length film almost. And it has a lot of those qualities, actually, of cinematic kind of qualities to it.
Yep.
If they had more time, I think they could have been. Yeah, it could have been something really.
I think I agree. I'm starting to hit that sort of place with a lot of these episodes. I think a lot of the episodes are starting to have ideas that are almost too big for the 40 minutes of the show. Maybe not big, but they're certainly running into a wall of time to develop a character. And what's really sticking out to me are the scenes that are clearly rushed just because they have to get character A from point A to point B. You know what I mean? They have to make these changes sort of drastically. Guinan serves that purpose here. She kind of rushes the changes in Ro along.
Right. Yeah.
We're going to talk about an episode next in a couple days, which is even worse, I think, in that regard.
Yeah.
But I ask about the darkness of what the Bajoran Cardassian storyline is, just because I think the best moment in this, and they're lucky that they got Michelle Forbes to play Ensign Ro, is her little speech about being forced to watch her father be tortured to death.
Yeah.
And
oh my God.
And feeling embarrassed by him, sort of, which is like a really sort of layered deep emotional thing for this show, sort of like you don't see really heart to heart. The problem is it's set in the TNG universe where after she's done delivering this like monologue to the camera, it cuts to Picard and he's just sort of back into TNG mode, sort of like it like doesn't resonate with him whatsoever.
He can't really be like emotionally involved in that, it seems like, maybe.
Right.
But the writing is so good in this episode.
Yeah.
It's got to be said. The dialogue and the way they wrote so much little backstory that trickles out for Ro. Man, it's a really well-written episode.
They leave some things unsaid, like you never figure out what caused her, whatever that first thing is where 8 people died. They never talk about that.
Yep, they never talk about that. They don't really explain her earring thing, aside from just saying it's a shorthand for her, Bajoran personality.
Yes, yeah.
Right, her Bajoran identity, and you're making her throw it off because of regulation. They just shorthand through all of that by using it as just a little thing. They never really explain what it's for, but you get the meaning of it immediately.
Yep.
And like I said, the little things that trickle out about her backstory, the 8 crew members that died because she made a choice, little things like that. It's great. And they never actually really need to explain any of it. Just, you immediately understand Ro pretty well in this.
Yeah.
And that's a credit to the writing, I think.
Yeah, and I think the most you get out of it is when they beam down, Picard has a supplemental captain's log where he explains sort of the Bajorans were philosophers and everything since before humans were walking around on 2 legs. I like that little supplemental log, but you don't get deep into what the Bajorans actually are. They don't even really imply that they're religious at this point, which is what Deep Space Nine eventually takes them. They're sort of a religious society. You don't get that here. They're just sort of like quietly reserved, but also with a sort of intense terroristic streak, which is interesting. I don't know if that internally really makes a lot of sense, although I think the Bajorans in this episode are more violent or more aggressive than they eventually become. For most of them, anyway.
That's true. Well, there's some in TNG. In Deep Space Nine, there is a few more terrorist kind of Bajorans.
There are. There seems to be a huge divide. It's like you're either sort of a freedom fighter or you're like deeply spiritual. Can
we talk about how cool Orta is?
Yeah, he reminded me of
really cool.
He reminded me of Total Recall a little bit.
Yeah,
I don't really know why. It's not like he's Quato or anything like that, but that's the most obviously violent thing I think we've ever seen on the show.
It got dark. I wish they hadn't even revealed his face until later. It made someone say something I don't know. If they had more time. Again, if they had more time in this episode, they could have just not even explain it. Just leave him in the mask with the headdress on and have him with this robotic voice and don't even explain any of it to a later reveal and be like, this is real stuff, guys. You guys don't get it.
This is what
make Picard say something like, we can't get involved, and make him show his face and be like, you should, kind of thing.
Right, yeah, yeah. I wonder if, I guess it goes into what you were saying about more time. I wonder if we would have been suited for more of the Bajoran storyline. They're eventually going to flesh it out. It's like, if you saw this as a one and done and didn't think you were ever going to see because the Bajorans or Ro, I don't think this episode implies that Ro is going to be continuing to be a recurring character on it. The show has done this before. That kind of
does. Well, I don't know. It does have this welcome aboard kind of thing to it.
It does, but I feel they've done that with other characters and we've never seen them again. There's always someone that they're like, why don't you come with us? And remember in what the hell was it? The one where Riker's captured by the aliens and they don't think other aliens exist. It's that episode but they bring on the alien female.
They make her come with, but she's a civilian. She's just doing whatever she wants.
That's true. She is not an officer serving. But so I don't think it's out of the question where if you were watching this for the first time, you might be like, oh, that was interesting. Maybe we wouldn't see them ever again. Would you think it works in that sense? You think you get enough of the storyline where you would be satisfied?
I think it leaves you wanting more because there's so many little things that aren't like I said, there's so many little things that they throw into there that aren't explained. There's enough mystery about the race that you're like, this is intriguing kind of thing without, getting into all the backstory of every little, Bajoran minutia that you can solve. Later on, in Deep Space Nine, you find out that they're more religious and that kind of thing. And there's all this little stuff that's kind of subtext here, but it's not even addressed. And I like that they held back. Even if this stuff was, I don't know if this was thought of ahead of time or they made it up later for Deep Space Nine.
Yeah.
But there's little shades of it here at least. So I think there's enough here that it's interesting enough that you want to revisit it for sure.
Yeah, I'd agree. I'd agree with that. I think I agree with that. I'm fairly happy with the amount of context here that you get. You get more about Ro than any of the other things.
And that's how she's the title of the episode, so it should be that way.
Yes. Yep.
So
speaking about her Bajoran earring, why do they let Worf wear his Klingon sash?
That's a good point. They don't care about that.
he can wear whatever the hell he wants. It's not a big deal. I just thought
Racist,
that was,
man.
I guess you could
Double standards.
argue the story is that Riker needs to take a hard line with her because she's an insubordinate officer.
He just be being a jerk about it too, because he knows her past and doesn't want her there, kind of thing.
I love that scene where him and Picard are talking at first, and he's like, I'm going to fucking push her, to get like the best performance out of her possible. And Picard's like, I know, like that's good. And then she comes in and Riker,
it's like, I don't want to be here.
Riker's just yelling at her, and she gives the I don't want to be here. And Picard gives a sort of an odd face at the end of that scene, kind of like a bitches be crazy look on his face when she storms out of there. It was an odd choice. He sort of gets walked over. I don't know if walked over, but he doesn't respond to her challenge as much as I feel is in character for him. Did you feel the same, or did you think differently?
Yeah, he does, like, I don't know, he's oddly receptive to someone coming at him like that.
Yes, yeah.
He does have this disrespectful instant coming on board, and like, he's embarrassed that he stepped in it with calling her Ensign Ro originally.
Yeah.
So he's like trying to like make amends after that. He's on the defensive.
Yeah, she was a little intense about that, a little feisty about. It's an honest mistake. It's one of those things. It's like, oh, sorry, Jesus.
But he used it later, and he was gracious about it. And it's like, oh, that speaks to his character, and it speaks to her character, and it all works very well.
That's true, and it allowed the other. The leader that they meet to be sort of impressed. He's like, oh,
it mattered for the plot too. Yeah,
you took 5 seconds to learn our custom of calling our names backwards, which is good. There are cultures on Earth that do that. I think there are certain Asian cultures that do that, so it's not that outrageous the way that they would think. But
I think Japanese is like that.
Is it? Yeah, or family name first, which makes sense in a sort of way. Like saying your family name first almost feels more logical than your given name. It gets like the important information out of the way first, sort of. Like it tells your family relations for like immediately.
And again, if it is, I might be completely wrong about the Japanese, but if it is that, it taps into something that we already know as far as Earth, and applies it to the Bajoran, which makes it already like, again, it's shorthand for okay,
sure.
This is a species, this is a race that values family names first. So there's a lot of respect for family and that kind of thing in this culture.
Yes.
It's a shorthand for other stuff, which is nice.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. I think that, for all the really great stuff that happens in this episode, and I do think it's a pretty good episode, there's, I do kind of have an issue with the plotting as it goes along. This admiral that's pulling all the strings, he might be the stupidest admiral
he's really stupid
the show has ever presented to us. His line at the end where he's like, the Cardassians, why would they do that? It's like, all right, guy, like how did you get to the rank of admiral when you don't seem to understand that every fucking race in the galaxy is trying to trick you all the time?
Right. He's the rube. He's the rube admiral.
He's the rube. And there's a lot of disrespect going on. Picard is just insulting him to his face, like constantly.
Bad burn to him, yeah.
Just maybe they were waiting for someone naive enough like you idiot, to do this.
you moron. Way to go.
I do like the receiving a secure call over the view screen so everyone can watch it. I thought that was nice.
That was good. Yeah.
But it sort of ties into the admiral thing. I feel that the plot to resolve the episode feels really basic. It's like, oh, it's a ship with nobody on it.
Yeah, you can call that from. They didn't play it up enough to, like, make you think something else was happening.
No,
but again, it's a short thing. I think if they could expand this episode out to a feature film, they would have a different resolution for the ending. Maybe something more action based.
You'd have more than one scene with Orta. Is that his name?
Yeah, you'd get Orta back again.
Yeah, he'd definitely be more involved. I mean, it's funny because I feel like the plot mechanics, they're kind of there just to push the narrative forward, and I don't know if they're really all that relevant. I wouldn't dock too many points for it being A, sort of boring, and B, not really eventful. At the same time, it's a little bit complicated what's going on if you're not paying attention to it. So it's like a simplistic complexity, if that makes any sense.
Simple yet complicated. Yeah,
it's
I know what you mean.
She's like, Ro reveals everything. It's very obvious because the show shows you her talking to the admiral, so you know something's up.
Yeah.
So it doesn't disguise anything that's going on, and I just feel it's a relatively unsatisfying resolution.
Yeah. Yeah, they played that the act break when she gets the call from the Admiral. It's like everything's going as you predicted. It's like it seems a lot more sinister than it is.
Yeah.
They could have played that differently maybe, but I don't know. It works.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder about her, but
It does. Whose side is she on? I suppose would be the ultimate.
She hasn't really done anything but that point by to go away from Picard's plan, though. Like, she hasn't done anything sinister.
Right.
She's like, they're all falling into your trap by doing exactly what they would have done anyways.
Right. Yeah.
And then she gets the orders to leave the ship and go down to the planet. But up until that point, she hadn't done anything like that seems sinister or seems like she's working against them somehow.
Yeah. So, I mean, the Admiral's ultimate plan here is to get rid of this terrorist group, right? So that they can just normalize relations with the Cardassians, sort of.
I guess so. Yeah.
I was always, I think it makes sense. I don't know how much I want to think about it. I guess that's his plan. And he sends Ro because she has a line, she can provide something the Federation can't. Oh, he's going to give them arms, right? Is that what's
he was going to give what was going to happen?
He's going to give the terrorists arms, right? He's going to supply them with ships and everything so that they can keep. No, right? Why would?
Yeah, but why would you do that though? He was helping the Cardassians to kill them, basically.
Right. So is the supplying them with ships?
Is he trying to dupe Ro into helping him when he's actually trying to kill the terrorists? And then he finds out that he's being used by the Cardassians, so it's like a double feint kind of thing. Like,
I think so.
He's tricking Ro into helping him, and then the Cardassians are tricking him into helping them.
I guess so. I'm more confused now that I'm thinking about it. It made more sense when I was watching it, but now that I'm trying to explain what was going on, I think that's kind of what I mean by the simplistic complexity.
Because he wanted revenge for the attack on the Federation, because he thinks that they actually did it.
Right.
And the Picard's like, no, there wasn't an attack.
You idiot.
Porta told me. Yeah, you moron. And so he was being deceived. So that's really weird. So why was Ro helping him then? Because she's not going to let her own people get killed by him.
Right.
So he must have been bluffing her.
He's being deceived by the Cardassians, who are trying to get rid of the Bajoran terrorists, and then he's using Ro to find them. Is that
to get them to trust him? Maybe
just to go out into the ship so that the Cardassians can kill him?
I guess so.
Okay.
Or it's more so to lead the Cardassians to the terrorist group, I think.
Right, yes,
the idea.
yeah, right, because the Cardassians can't find them for some reason, even though the Federation immediately finds everybody.
Well, that's what you need Ro for, though, too. She knows where to look for them.
Yeah,
so.
That's right. The other funny line, I like the implied thing that Beverly Crusher got into relations with some Bajoran dancer guy, which is a funny time to bring up her relationships at that conference or whatever the hell she said she was attending. It was an interesting choice. Well, that's it for Ensign Ro. I think we talked about it a good portion of the time. We're going to take a break, play an audio clip. Me and Modi will come back. We'll give our final thoughts and ratings for Ensign Ro.
You were recruited for one mission, and if you wish to be relieved of further duty, I can certainly arrange it, but I'd like you to consider remaining in Starfleet.
You're not serious.
Mm-hmm. I think it would be a shame for Starfleet to lose someone of your potential.
Well, thank you, Captain. But this uniform just doesn't fit, and you know it.
That can change.
I don't think so.
I've noticed qualities in you that could be harnessed, molded.
Don't count on it.
I think you've got a great deal to learn from Starfleet.
I always thought Starfleet had a lot to learn from me, Captain.
That's an attitude that I've found common among the best officers I've ever served with.
Row, row, row your boat.
Gently,
gently down the stream. Yeah, Ensign Ro. I think I summed it up best by I didn't really enjoy this one the first time, and I liked it a lot more the second time. So I don't know what that says about the episode. Probably that it's not particularly action-packed, and you sort of need to pay attention to like what the character moments are in this one, I think, more than what the plot mechanics are. So
I had to watch it with the captions on because my kid was making a lot of noise when I was trying to watch it.
Yeah.
And I'm really glad I did because there's a lot of little dialogue things I picked up on by watching with the captions on that I probably would have missed if I was watching without it. And
Yeah.
that's why I came to this one and I'm like, the dialogue is actually really, really good in this episode. Like this writing's at another level.
Yeah. Yep.
So yeah.
Season 5 has been good so far. Like surprisingly, not surprisingly, but it's been consistently high quality so far, which has been wonderful. So what do you want to give this one on our scale of 1 to 5?
Okay, so I am going to give this one a 5.
Wow.
For the awesome writing, the awesome dialogue, like I mentioned, the introduction of the Bajoran and Ensign Ro, and just the skillful way it was written mostly.
Yep.
The plot itself has some weaknesses, and it can be a little slow, I suppose, at the end. The action moment is them destroying an empty cruiser, but
yeah, it does feel
it
slow
still works
at the end. Although I love
there's a lot of cool things going on though.
I love the both the Cardassian Gull and Picard bullshitting each other with I think Patrick Stewart plays those sort of like sarcastically being nice to somebody. He's very good at doing that sort of character thing.
Yeah, I'm giving it a 5.
Give it a 5. I'll give it I think it's a 4 for me. I think it's an above average episode that has a couple problems, mostly narrative type things, but I think it's really strong as a character episode. I'm glad that the show brought in another female character, which is something we didn't really talk about, but it's there's going to be plenty of time with the Ro character.
And a different kind of female character, really, too. Like, this one is very competent.
Yep.
And it doesn't feel unnatural for her to, talk back.
Right, I mean, she's
a different kind of character altogether.
She's different from the men, even.
Even that, yeah, exactly.
It's not even just the fact that she's a woman. She is different from the rest of the cast members, and I think this is the most aggressive you ever see her. So it's not like she sort of, because I think she's a little bit. It makes sense in context here, but she's like if she was a regular who was always this way, it would be a little bit unbearable.
Probably.
But she tones it down nicely while still keeping her sort of characterization intact.
Michelle Forbes also does the great hiding a smirk kind of thing.
Yep.
Like when Guinan tells her that she's her friend now, she just has this little she's trying not to smile kind of thing.
Right.
It's pretty good.
She's not as all the other characters are extremely earnest with everybody, and she's not. She's a little bit more nuanced and layered, and she's a good addition to the show. Great actress, nice looking lady. And she's a solid actress to bring into here in a show that desperately needed a stronger female presence.
Besides Whoopi.
Yes, besides Guinan, who even though this is her weakest thing in my opinion, it's not terrible. Like her acting,
still better. Yeah,
her acting
it's still better than anything you give Deanna.
Right. Yeah.
So, yeah.
No complaints. I'm going to give it a 4. I think it's not one of the top episodes for me, but I think it's a reliable, understated episode that I think people should watch, and it almost deserves an extra point just because of what it's laying the groundwork for later on. Cool beans. All right, well, thank you, Motor, for coming on.
No problem.
And we are going to be back in a couple days with the Silicon Avatar, which is the crystalline entity makes its return. Dun, 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 dun. Good. All right, thank you guys for listening. If you're on YouTube, like in the comments, appreciate it. If you're on iTunes, a rating and review helps get the show out there. Season 5, we're coasting along. It's been a lot of fun so far. It'll be sad when this is all said and done. Guys, thank you very much for listening, and we will see you in a couple days with the Silicon Avatar.